MLB.com's Mandy Bell covers the Cleveland Guardians on a daily basis. Their beat reporter, one of the superstar writers in the industry. Mandy, thank you so much for joining us. Great to talk to you. How's your day going? And did you catch any of the Burns interview there?
I did, and I think I'm reiterating everything you guys just said. How cool is it that he's sitting there showing grips? I mean, I don't think there's anything cooler than that for anyone watching, especially kids. So, sort of like reminded me of how we saw Adam Wainwright do that mic'd up pregame last year, going through his whole pregame routine. Coolest things ever, and I think it's just doing wonders for kids out there who have resources like this now.
Mandy, you're out in Goodyear, is that right? In Cleveland camp, in the Guardians.
Yep.
How are they doing? I mean, my White Sox, they beat the tar out of my White Sox last year. So, I mean, are they talking about that again? There was a big celebration. They won, and a lot of White Sox talking their celebrations. So, I mean, how's it going out there?
I mean, it seems like the vibe is pretty much the same as it was last year, which is different because last year no one expected much of them. And then this year, everyone's sort of expecting things. And yet they're still trying to keep the same mentality of having this chip on the shoulder, trying to prove people wrong. I think they're really looking at it as, okay, well, people don't think we can do it again. And so that's how they've been able to have that same type of a mindset going into this year. So I think largely they're trying to just approach this season like they did last year, because in reality, it is going to be difficult to duplicate what they did because a lot of things had to go right and they all did. And so seeing if that can play out once again will be challenging, but I think that they're trying to keep that same let's prove everyone wrong mentality.
Mandy, happy International Women's Day today. Nobody congratulated you. Thank you for being a woman and being a new wife. But isn't what you just said? Isn't that your job as the writer who's following the Guardians? Like, hey, you know what? You need to tell us how this team is going to accomplish what they accomplished last year. So, who is not necessarily even a prospect? Who in camp that you haven't written about yet, or you're maybe about to write about, do you think is going to have a huge impact on that team? Because the reason I say that is because the Guardians, year in and year out, are calling people up that fit into roles and may not have that prospect status, but they also call up the prospects. And if they don't hit well, they don't pitch well, we'll see you. Like, they'll go and get the next guy. So who is that guy in that camp, or maybe several guys?
I think there are a couple of guys. I mean, one, I think without a doubt, it's going to be Triston McKenzie, who is going to need to have that huge year behind Shane Bieber. We've all seen Shane Bieber and what he's able to do consistently. We saw Triston McKenzie and what he's capable of last year. But I think to see him duplicate what he did last year and show that he can be consistent, because I know that was a problem for him in the past. He got sent down in 2021 because he was struggling with his command, and proving that he can be consistent and just showing that he could be like a Cy Young type of contender. I think that'll be huge for this team. Now, offensively, it's going to be, I think, Oscar Gonzalez is the big one that I'm watching right now, because there's a lot of doubt, I think, that he can do what he did last year and do it just as well. Because like throughout the minor leagues, the biggest thing with him was that he is so aggressive at the plate. His plate discipline just didn't seem like it would translate well to the big leagues. It didn't seem like he would be successful. And somehow he was able to pull that off last year. Now, can he avoid that sophomore slump? Can he get into it more this year where he's saying, look, I'm here to stay. I can be consistent at the plate. I can sit there and I can draw more walks. I can be like more patient. I think that's the biggest thing for him to answer, because if he's not able to do what he did last year, this is a completely different lineup. That's a big hole to try to figure out how they're going to fill. So I think he's a big focal point for this offense.
I'd called 4 or 5 Guardians national games last year, and you're around this guy, and like he almost went in the Rule 5 draft and they could have lost him, which is a whole nother story in itself, which we can get into. But you're looking at the guy, and then you look at him in BP, then you look at him in the game, and you're like, how the hell was this guy almost going to go to another team? Like he's a monster. He looks good out there. So I'm with you. I'm expecting big things from him. I want to double down on Happy International Women's Day. Mandy, one of the great voices and writers in the game, and we all shouted out the amazing women in our lives, both who we work with and part of our families. So wanted to just give you a chance to give a shout out, but also to specifically in this industry, the women that have made a major impact in your career?
Oh man, that's difficult. I think it's easy to sit there and just think about everyone. I mean, I grew up watching people like Meredith Marakovich, seeing how great she was at her sideline job. I mean, people like Kim Jones. I was a Penn Stater, so like Kim Jones was a big one for me because she was a Penn Stater. You think about watching Jess Mendoza every single Sunday. It was just so easy to see these figures. And I was lucky enough to be part of a generation where it was easy to see figures like that. I know they all didn't have those types of figures as regularly as my generation and the next generation will. And so it's nice to see that becoming more normalized and easier for other women to see people in this role that look like them and are like them. And so, yeah, and I guess for a shout out, I mean, is it easy enough for me to always just shout out Sarah Langs every time I have? So I think Sarah Langs is going to be my easy shout out for that one. She's my best friend. Obviously, if you follow me on Twitter, we don't really hide it that well. So I think I'm going to shout out Sarah Langs as much as I can.
That's nice. That's great. Mandy, didn't Meredith Marakovich, didn't she play volleyball at Penn State?
She was LaSalle, but Kim Jones was there. But she did play volleyball. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I got the two. I got the two confused. Yankee reporters. You get them a little confused sometimes. Yeah, right. Okay, so Eric already mentioned you just got married recently. Is your husband a baseball fan?
Okay, is he watching right now? No, I'm gonna go with it's enough. He actually works for the Cleveland Cavaliers, so he's more into basketball, but he can get by as a baseball fan. I guess I'll give him that.
Okay, did you grow up a Guardians fan / Indians fan?
No, so I was from Pennsylvania, and somehow instead of falling into the Orioles, Phillies, Pittsburgh Pirates land, I actually grew up a Yankees fan, if you couldn't tell from the women I listed. But somehow got brainwashed at a young age to fall into that.
Okay, so is it tough? Like if the Guardians play the Yankees, you root for the Yankees or you root for the Guardians?
You don't root for anything. You root for
That's
the
a
best
lie. That's a lie.
angle that comes.
No, that's
It
true.
is not a lie.
No, you want your team to be good. If you cover a team, you want them to be good. You don't want to follow a crappy team.
Oh, you're saying as a beat reporter, you want the team to be good.
Yeah,
that's actually
for the
interesting.
best possible angle. If it's a loss, you just want them to lose in a creative, weird, fun way that you can go write about. That's different. You don't want the run-of-the-mill 4-0 loss with absolutely nothing to write about.
No, you want to win, a creative win or just a win, because when you go in there, the guys are like, oh, man, it's so great to see you. We won. Whereas if some guy boots the ball in some crazy way, the guy's like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. So, yeah, you root for wins.
I guess so. I guess you hope for the best possible outcome to be able to write about. And I guess it is fun to cover a postseason run. So you have a point.
You write about these players on a daily basis, multiple stories daily, and you have other stories, in the wing, in the queue that you're working on. How do you build as a writer? How do you build that relationship with those players your way? Not necessarily maybe how you do it, and also how you've been taught and seen other people do it.
Well, my own take on it is I am child obsessed. So anyone with children, I am 100% starting with asking about their kids and finding out every single thing about them, because genuinely, I absolutely love learning about kids and hearing about them. So that's my easy way into conversations. But I mean, I think it's just being approachable, trying to show that, look, I'm not trying to be the enemy here. People can easily look at media like that, and just trying to be a friendly, familiar face and not trying to seem like you're trying to overstep. And you're just trying to broadcast more about the game that you love so much. And so trying to find fun, positive angles more often than just trying to dig into the negative. I think that's the biggest thing for me. And you just try to have as much small talk as you can as you're walking through the clubhouses, and show people that you actually care about them as human beings and not just the prop of trying to get something out of for a story or whatever it may be. But I think that's just the biggest thing for me.
And you've got a pretty young Cleveland Guardians group, which is fun. I mean, they're not, big league and all the reporters like AJ and Krasny used to do. Tito doesn't
Dude,
big
Tito
league anyone.
does.
No, he doesn't.
Mandy, has Tito ever said, "Oh, hold on, guys, I got to finish my cribbage game before I can talk to you"?
Probably at some point, but now that he lost Brian Shaw, I don't know if he has many cribbage partners anymore. But that was a big thing. That was a big thing.
He used to tell us we'd go in there for oh, hold on, guys, I got to finish my card game. And then the worst part is you come out with like his shirt off, and you're like, "Oh, please, no, put your shirt on, Tito."
Luckily, he doesn't walk into the media room shirtless, so I don't have to worry about that one.
Okay. Exactly. There you go. Okay, so I've got one more Guardians question for you, Mandy. So this was the youngest team in baseball last year. They have done just one of the best jobs in baseball at making trades, but also developing their prospects, which we talked about. But like the Lindor trade, the Kluber trade, Clase, Jimenez, Ahmed Rosario. So clearly they're doing something right. I have heard from those in the industry, they're difficult to trade with. Their front office members are super nice humans. It's Midwest nice. It's that they value their prospects at a certain level and they don't budge, even if that means not making a trade. Your thoughts on that? Because it's not a knock because they're doing it well, but you hear the grumpy other front offices being like, "Oh, I can't deal with Cleveland because they think their prospects here and they won't move off of that."
Yeah, that's extremely accurate. That is it to a T. They have a price in mind. They never say really anyone's off the table when it comes to conversations, but some people are going to be worth the farm and some people maybe a little bit less, but they do not ever sell anything for a penny less than what they think that they should get. And so they've become masters at it. You just listed off so many guys right now that are huge impact players for them that were part of trades that were some big name players. I mean, you think of how they got Emmanuel Clase. You start thinking back to Corey Kluber, and that was such a huge name for this franchise. But now it's turned into Clase, who's just the best closer in the American League. And so they know how to find these types of trades that can turn into something that really can send an all-star player like Francisco Lindor and get an Andres Jimenez, who fans were already saying within like the first 2 months after Lindor left, like, "Oh, we won the trade. We won the trade." Like everyone was so in on it after losing a star like Lindor. It's really impressive how they've done it. But yes, there's a reason why right now they have one of the best minor league systems, but they don't really have many places for these young guys to come up because everyone's young on the major league roster. No one really takes days off. And so there's not many holes for these guys to come up and fill, but they still haven't parted ways with them when most people would have already had some turnover by now to try to get some trades going because they don't have enough middle infield spots for all their middle infielders that are in their top 30 prospects right now. Well, they're still hanging on to them. They obviously haven't gotten the deal that they've wanted to get. And so they're going to hang on to them, even if they don't really have the places for them, even throughout their minor league system. It's going to be so crowded right now to try to find places for everybody, but they do not let go of people unless they think they get exactly what they deserve.
Smart.
Yeah.
It's smart, though.
It's
working.
Organization.
It's working, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mandy, last thing for me, you recently did an interview where you mentioned rule changes you think are going to help the Guardians. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit? Is it because the bases, the pitch clock, they're going to steal more bases? Like, what's the main thing you see helping the Guardians?
I don't know if it's necessarily helping them as much as it doesn't hurt them as much as it could other teams. I think that the pitch timer is something that they can really use to their advantage. And Tito always talks about, like, we're going to try to get anything that's presented to us and spin it to be the best possible advantage for us that we can. And the biggest thing for them is they're so young. I mean, all their pitchers just came up using that in the minor leagues. And so you have so many teams right now that have really veteran pitchers who are in their ways and have not had to adjust to anything like this ever. And this rotation and most of this bullpen just came from using it. And so they're like, okay, well, this is nothing new. We know exactly how to use this. And then we know how to keep the game moving. And I never even thought twice about their rotation struggling with this at all because they work so fast to begin with. And so those types of things I think they can use to their advantage. Just some teams might be a little bit slower to adjust. I think these guys have zero issue with it. And it will not take them very much time at all to adjust to this. I think maybe just a start or two in spring training, and they're already like, okay, we're fine. We know how to do this. So, I mean, just the scrappy base running that they do, they're always going first to third no matter what. I think that maybe the bigger bases could help them steal a little bit more and help them play their small ball game. But I think they're just figuring out ways to just make these as beneficial to them as possible, maybe easier than other teams.
Yeah, I love their style of play. They were
Mhm.
zigging while everyone else was zagging last year, and it was really cool and fun to watch. Mandy, you're a rock star. You can follow her. IG is at Mandy Bell MLB, and Twitter is at Mandy Bell 02. And then let's just finish with this. I think we've got the shirt to show off, which they're coming in the mail for AJ and me next week. So I think we're bringing Sarah on in the next week or two. The shirt is so money. Baseball is the best. You can see down the middle end ALS. Always thinking about Sarah. We were texting with her yesterday, actually. So a shout out on a special day here to your true BFF, Mandy. It's an awesome relationship to watch you two like on social media too, like having your back and forth, like two of the best in baseball. So we appreciate you, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.